And welcome to Capital Talk, a program we hope will have an impact on the future of Kenya. Now, more than ever, I'm Jeff Koinange. Now, with literally days to go before the August 4th referendum, it is time to decide. That's right. Those of you who are still undecided, it is time. And that's why we've been sparing nobody. We've been covering all bases. We want to leave nothing to chance because this, as most people on the bench have been saying throughout the past weeks, is the most important moment since independence. Think about it, all you undecided, and let's talk to a man who decided from the very get-go. In fact, a man of principle. Because when they started throwing stones at him in the August House, he says, you know what? I'll step aside. You guys look for whatever you want, and when you find something, let me know. If you don't, I'll be back. And sure enough, he came back. He got a different portfolio. He got another portfolio, 2 huge ministries, and he's still running a constituency. I simply call him the comeback kid from Kipipiri. He's got trade, he's got transport. He's a busy man. Amos Kimunya. Mheshimiwa,
yes.
Good to see you back on the bench.
I'm happy.
And you're looking younger. What is this?
Well, it's probably the prospect of a better Kenya next week. I'm just feeling, yes. Yeah. We're getting close to the end of the journey that has been struggling. You know, this country has been struggling for the last 20 years. We've been spending lots of money on it. We've spent lots of man hours on it. You know, people have called one another names. We ran around, you know, in bombers. We had walkouts. We had a referendum. And we have brought in consultants. We fought over it in terms of 207. And for once, I can see a brighter future for Kenya come next Wednesday. And I'm very optimistic.
And you know, you're not just saying that because you do see it, especially with the ministries, the portfolios that you hold under the new constitution. Things are, I mean, there's going to be so much in terms of resources.
There's got to be so much in terms of confidence. Remember 2002, when Kenyans were said they are the most optimistic people in the world. I see that happening from next week. You know, that feel-good factor that comes with people feeling, yes, we're being reborn again. We can now look into the future with confidence. We can now start looking at the actualization of the third pillar of the Vision 2030. Remember, Vision 2030 had 3 pillars.
Yes.
There's an economic pillar, where we are saying we want to grow at 10% plus for the next 20 years. There's a social pillar that says we want to work together as Kenyans, having the same, you know, social equity in a cohesive society. And the third pillar, that having the proper political and legal systems to anchor the other 2. It's a 3-legged stool. Yeah. And if one of the legs is not working, then the other 2, you might as well forget them. And you can see that very clearly from what happened in January 2008. 2003 to 2007, the economy was growing. And everyone was happy, you know, booming. You know, free education, so social issues were being taken care of. In terms of medical services, social issues were being taken care of. Housing, things were moving on. But we did not have the right political environment. So that when people started, you know, competing in 2007, and almost hate speech became the order of the day, community against the other, 41 tribes versus 1, that kind of situation, the structure was not there to deter that, right? And we saw what happened. 2008, the 7% growth that we had witnessed in 2007 plummeted to 1.7. We were lucky to get that. All the tourists we had brought and the hotels were full and people were building new ones, cut by 3/4. So we need this third pillar, right? And after all the investment we've done through all these commissions, through all the experts, through the Kofi Annans, through the Kriegers coming in, and all the people who have come to assist this country, we've agreed, you know, the real basis of moving forward in Kenya is the base, creating the base, the foundation on the one that which the economic pillar, the social pillar will stand. And that is the governance.
And yet there are people out there, Mheshimiwa, who don't want this to happen.
But they've never wanted. You know, people who have always opposed will continue opposing. Whether you tell them it's good, if we had said no, they would have said yes. Just to be on the other side. Yeah. So, and I think we must remember this. In 2005, We lost the referendum partly because of the political differences between NAC and LDP, as it was then.
Yeah.
We could have done better in terms of sorting out the differences in Bomas. But because we allowed the politics to take center stage, we lost the good things even as we went building consensus. Now, we have a golden opportunity in that the two parties that were adversaries in 2005, one selling oranges and the other one bananas, are now together. And for once, that is a moment that Kenyans should seize and run with. Because when, how sure are we that in future we'll have this coming together of these two opposite sides?
Yeah.
We have the Prime Minister on one side and the President on one side singing the same tune. Now, if you have people from either sides, who are singing differently, it's not because of political or policy issues or anything substantial. It has to be some regional aspect. There are people who are opposing because they want their own county. There are people who feel their province has been dissected, right? And the people they have been lording over have been given their freedom. The Turkana will remain as Turkana and will be able to develop the Turkana county as Turkana, right? The Pokots will do the same. The Maasai will do the same. The people from Baringo will do the same. The Marakwet will do the same. The people in Nakuru, which is a melting pot, or people from all different places, will now develop Nakuru without reference to Rift Valley, right? So there's no single one lord who comes and says, I'm the lord of Rift Valley. We in Nyandarua will start feeling, yes, we don't have to keep reporting to Nyeri, right? When the rest of Central Province is discussing their coffee and tea, we have no coffee and tea. So we'll be able to now articulate the issues of Nyandarua County as Nyandarua County. And I believe that is the liberation that people across the country have felt. That now break us into these 47 counties. Let us start looking within our county. What can make economic sense? How do we compete between Nyandarua and Laikipia, Nyandarua and Nakuru, Nyandarua and Nyeri? Who do we collaborate with? All right? And that will be the beginning point of spurring economic activity at the grassroots level.
Yeah.
So that people don't just look at economic activity as Nairobi, as provincial headquarters. Let us start having that each of these counties will start attracting investors into their own county. And to me, as Minister for Trade, that is what I would like to see. In fact, under this proposed new constitution, trade matters have been brought into the purview of the county. It's each county that will start sorting out the trade matters within their county. Because people develop unique things. There's cement in Pokot, right?
Yeah.
So those people will feel now, this is our industry, we must protect it, we must grow it, we must give it all the necessary support. There's potatoes in Kipiperi and Kinango and Okala in Nyandarua. We must now start looking at this is our time to start developing this as an industry, right? Without reference to what is happening in Taita, without reference to what is happening in Nyeri, because they will develop their coffee, they will develop their tea. And I believe when you look at all these things, the sum total of it is that Kenyans have a unique opportunity now more than ever before to start defining a new future. And from investors out there in our discussions with them, it's been, you guys sort out your politics. Sort out a conducive environment to doing business, and we shall come.
And if you don't sort it out?
If you don't sort it out, they have Uganda, they have Tanzania, they have Rwanda, they have Burundi, they have Ethiopia, they have other countries where they can go, and they will still sell their goods here. They have Egypt, they have everywhere else. But Kenya is the anchor for the East African entry point for every investor coming into Africa. And the only concern they've been having is, we saw what happened for the first 5 years of the Kibaki administration. We also saw what happened in 2008. You guys messed it up. Am I going to put my investment and you mess it up in 2012? Right? And if you don't have this in constitution, you can be sure investors will not come. You can be sure 2012 will be a free fall and people will be fighting all over, right? And we could well be making Kenya another Somalia. And I hope those guys who are saying no can for once open their minds beyond their regional issues and start looking at Kenya within the bigger picture. Yeah, look at all these young kids who need a brighter future, rather than they are salaried and all these guys in the know. You look at them; they don't have money; they have resources. That's why they are spending it, right? But the poor kids out there in the countryside, in the dry areas, what future do they have? What future can we give them? Except by anchoring it through a document that will protect them. Yeah.
In fact, you're a co-chair of the African Growth and Opportunities Act. You're on your way to America as we speak.
In fact, I just received the clearance. Again, it's the president's wish, because he would have wanted me to be here.
Yeah.
But I also have to go and co-chair. And part of that reason is also to give the people coming to America the confidence that Kenya is on the verge of a new rebirth. That's part of my mission, to sell the new Kenya, so that come 5th, when I come back on 3rd, I would like to see them watching and seeing Kenya being reborn on the 4th. And on the 5th, I would like them to see them coming and saying, yes, Kenya has now taken a decision, and we want to go and help Kenya grow in a new constitutional dispensation.
Because let's face it, Mheshimiwa, everybody is waiting for this moment.
Exactly.
And they have the resources, they have the confidence that we'll get through with this.
Exactly. And, the sad thing is that, when you look at the people who are saying no, if they were giving us facts and saying that we have this problem with 1, 2, 3, we would like you to amend it, right? Or this is the proposed amendment. Or had they even brought those earlier, we would have been saying, yes, you brought it, we rejected. But we rejected 2005. And people said there was 80% was good, 20% was bad. So we had a Kiplagat committee. You remember,
yes.
Honorable Mother Karua then appointed a committee to look at those issues. They brought out a report. Then we had all these other issues. We had the Craiglas. We had all these other people who went around and said, these are the things that need to be done in the Constitution. We brought in a committee of experts, right? And they looked through all these issues. Then they gave it to the PSC. They looked at it in Parliament. They went to Naivasha. They agreed. We had people confirming and saying this is the best thing that has ever happened to Kenya since sliced bread. Yeah. And the next thing that has happened, we've seen the same people saying no to it. Now, having looked through those issues by the time we went to Parliament, you remember when we were even told anyone who has any amendments, bring them forward. Yeah. I brought my 30 amendments and I put them down in writing. But those amendments were never meant to say there's something wrong. It's to enhance the document further, right? And they're on record. And I'm sure at some point in future, somebody will refer to them. And they refer to some things like, for example, should the date of elections be in August instead of November? Right. Should should the Speaker chair the Parliamentary Service Commission? Should the Chief Justice chair the Judicial Service Commission? Things like those that are more of, we agree with the structure, but is this the better way to do it? And I have every confidence that, because they're on record, at some point in future, we will look at them, right? Now, I never saw the amendments that people are talking about now, being brought in Parliament by way of amendments. So people are basically talking of, let's reject this thing, we will amend it, and then bring it back to Parliament. Now, since we rejected the first one in 2005, it has taken us 5 years, one war, right? Yeah. Several commissions.
And billions
of shillings. Yeah. Now, are we prepared for that?
We can't afford it.
We can't afford it, and I'm not sure we can risk it.
Mheshimiwa, I want to talk more about that because I think that's very crucial. I think you raised some very good points. And also, those who are undecided right now, what's your message to them? Because we have days to go. And the way you describe, the way you break it down, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, but there are still skeptics out there. Let's try and convince a little further after the break, Mheshimiwa. Wow, the comeback kid from Kipipiri. This man is smart. He is just waxing, and he's breaking it down. As Minister of Trade and also Minister of Transport, he knows there's so much that this country is capable of doing. And he knows investors are literally waiting and watching. Are we going to disappoint them, or are we going to give them the country that they need to invest in? That's the bottom line. Think about it as we go into the break. Because Capital Talk is back in a moment. And welcome back to Capital Talk. I tell you, past few weeks when we've been talking to folks on the bench, they're really breaking it down. And that's why we have left nothing to chance We're covering all the bases with days to go before the most momentous occasion since independence, the August 4th referendum. And on the bench today is the man I simply call the comeback kid from Kipipiri, because he came back from the doldrums. They had literally hounded him out of the house, and he walked away, but he said, look, if there's nothing, if you find nothing, I'll be back. And he's back with 2 portfolios, trade and transport. And he's also running Kipipiri. Whoa, this man is just on the move. He's the Energizer Bunny. Amos Kimunya. You raised some really good points. You raised some good, and you know, there are still people out there who are undecided, Mheshimiwa. They're undecided at this point, either because they've been swayed by the nose, either because they believe the lies of some of the lies being perpetrated out there. What do you tell those undecideds?
I think for the ones who are undecided and yet can read for themselves, I'd just like them to declare, first of all, what is your stake in this constitution? Do you want to be a member of parliament? In which case you read the chapter on legislation, representation and all that. Do you want to be in the judiciary? Read that bit. But if you're just an ordinary Kenyan who wants your rights protected, who wants to know how you're protected as a Kenyan, forget everything else and read chapter 4, the Bill of Rights. And if you don't agree with me that it's a most comprehensive bill that covers you and your kids and all your interaction with your neighbors and everything and your business and your property, then perhaps we don't know what we are talking about. And if people could just concentrate on that, rather than being told about all these other things about that don't concern them, then we'll be making progress. I look at some of the issues people are being confused with. Simple things like abortion. For God's sake, when did Kenya become an aborting country? Right? Mm-hmm. It's never been an issue.
Correct.
It's never been raised. I've gone round the country within these campaigns with the president. And in every leaders' meeting, people have been coming up and saying, Mr. President, these are the things we'd like you to do for us in our area. These are our concerns. I've not heard anyone raising the issue that in our area, abortion is so much, can you do something about it? They've been talking about roads, they've been talking about their schools, they've been talking about infrastructure, the things that concern the people, right? So when people start talking of sideshows, red herrings like abortion, they're even forgetting that the current penal code is very tough on people who abort. If somebody procures an abortion, they could be in for up to 14 years. Anyone assisting, up to 7 years, right? That law has not been replaced, and it will be law, and it will continue, right? So things like that, I think it's where people are looking selectively at just one item and telling people reject everything else because we have this concern. The Kadhi courts. I was in Bomas. I followed this process all the way from 1990 when I was, from the year 2000, when I was chairman of the accountants body. And we used to sit around between the Christians and the Muslims in Ufungamano. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. When did this divide between the Christians and Fungamano come? Right? Who raised the issue of Kadhi courts in 2005? How come it's become an issue now? So these are side issues that are being brought by people who are fearing that under the new constitution, they might lose their ill-gotten wealth. Remember, I was Minister for Land before I went to Finance. Mm-hmm. And I was instrumental in the setting up of the Ndungu Commission. Because we wanted to, first of all, document all this ill-gotten land, right? And create a legal structure on how we are going to address it. We couldn't do it under the current constitution because Section 75 protects all land irrespective of how one got it. And people have been flashing that and going to court. Now, under this new constitution, the time for reckoning has come. And anyone who took a public road, anyone who took a public school, they now know they will not hide under the cover of Section 75 of the current constitution to say, it's my land, I have a title to it. Because this other one is saying, we'll protect everything unless you acquired it irregularly.
And that's why they're so scared.
That's the bottom line. You look at the whole of those characters and tell me who is not in Dungo report. Yeah.
They're all in there.
You can compare. See the list of the proponents, of the opponents, and look at the Dungo report, and you see what we are talking about.
Yeah.
So that's one of the issues. There's another group that is genuinely being confused in all this manner. And I'd like to tell them that a time has come when people take a decision as citizens of this country. Because we know for sure that the yes will win, people are keen to have a new constitution. And we will pass the 50% threshold either way. And the no's will not increase from the 20% to overtake us in the next 2 days, right? Not with the people learning the truth and with the campaigns. And we must thank the president for the energy he has put into this, right?
Yeah.
Because people seeing him so committed are now seeing, yes, what has this man got to gain from this? He has nothing to gain. In fact, he has everything to lose, right? But he's there flat out campaigning because he wants to give Kenyan children and people of Kenya a better future once he has left, right? Now, so I want to tell people that you have another 3 days to make up your mind. And on the 4th, let us all turn out the same way we turned out in the polling station to register as voters. Because there was no election. We are basically 12 million people who have registered because of the referendum. Let all the 12 million people turn up at the polling stations and say yes. 1, do I want a better future for my country? Do I want a better future for myself, for my family, for my children and their children? Do I want my property protected in a way that it doesn't matter who is in power, right? My property can be protected. Do I want more money coming to me where I live so that with the 15% that will be coming to the grassroots, in addition to the CDF, in addition to the LATIF, in addition to any other money that are currently flowing, do I want that money coming so that we can sit down as residents of that county and make a decision as to what is our priority? Do we want to do a hospital or do we want to do a school? We've seen recently, for example, the economic stimulus program, right?
Yep.
It's a good program.
Yes.
And, 22 billion has been disbursed into the countryside. But when you go to some other areas, they say, look, as we didn't want a health center, we would have preferred to do a mortuary for our existing health center. But the decision has been made at the center. It's a very good program. It's stimulating issues at the ground, right? Yeah. But there are counties where perhaps they would have wanted to do something different. They don't want a model school. They would have used the 30 million to do something else. But as the decision has been made at the center. Yeah. Now, had it been done come next week or under the new framework, you'd have been told, we are giving you so much through the economic stimulus program, but it's up to the individual counties to determine their priority areas that will stimulate activity in the area. Okay? And that's what we are calling devolution of not just the funds flowing, but the decision-making process, like we do with CDF.
Yes.
Small amounts, but they make a big difference. Now, scale it up 6 times, and you see what will happen. Now, anyone denying that surely has got their thinking upside down.
That's the bottom line, Mheshimiwa, because yes, there will always be little side issues, side shows, whatever. But Kenya is bigger than any individual.
Kenya is bigger than any individual. And, Kenya, even when people talking small regional issues, we must remember that from 1st of July, Kenya became part of the East African Community Common Market. So Kenya is only one of the 5 players within East Africa Community before you start looking at Kipiperi within Kenya. Now we must start looking at Kipiperi in East Africa before we bring in COMESA, before we bring in SADC, before we bring the bigger world. All right? And I want people, especially people who have gone to school, to start looking at the bigger picture. Where is the place of Kenya within the modern world? Right? We should now be talking of where are we vis-a-vis Brazil. Right? How come Brazil has overtaken us and moved? How come Russia is that far ahead? How come India is that far ahead? When will Kenya get there? Not thinking of, stopping the constitution because you have not gotten a county. Right? Yeah. We are being too micro when everyone is going at the bigger picture. Yes. And I believe when you start looking at it that way, the small issues of the counties will be solved. I have every confidence, Jeff, that by the time we start operationalizing even the 47 counties, people will not be talking of subdividing them further. They'll be talking of why don't we join up the county of the Nyandarua County and probably Nakuru County and Laikipia County to get a bigger county, right? Why don't we even reduce them further from 47 to say 20, so that we can have stronger units that we can, operate with. Not breaking down like the mentality we've had in the past of breaking from supermarkets to shops to kiosks. And even kiosks we find they are not good enough, we start hawking, right? where the rest of the country is going bigger units. If as East Africa, as Kenya, we are going East Africa route, as counties, we should now start negotiating with the other countries, the other counties in the future, that can we amalgamate our two counties into one huge country, because we have commonality of interest, we have the same issues, yeah, and we have a better pool of resources. Remember, even in the US, the richest states are the big ones.
Yeah. California,
exactly.
Texas.
Yeah, there's size matters and resources matter. So I'm very hopeful, obviously, that some of these things will become clearer as we move forward. And I've no doubts, obviously, that Kenyans will pass. And the question is, if you happen to be on the wrong side of history next week, by either not voting or opposing what everyone is supporting, won't you feel guilty forever that you are about to deny the people of Kenya the good things? Remember in 2002, when we were campaigning at the NAC, our opposition then was saying, we don't support free education, right? Yeah. As NAC, we said we support free education, and that will be the first item on the agenda. When free education was started through a decree by President Kibaki, because I remember he told us, I don't care where you get the resources, but kids must go to school. We saw 1.8 million kids who had previously been locked out of the school system getting into school. You even saw the 85-year-old man saying, I can go to school now.
Kimani Maruge.
Yes. So let people not oppose good opportunities, because they never know. They might even be the first beneficiaries of that. I'm sure the 1.8 million kids included people who voted against NAC, right? Yeah, they were the first ones to take their kids to school because NAC had brought free education. We've extended that to secondary school. But that is based on the goodwill of President Kibaki. Supposing the people who were saying no free education come to power in 2012, and they say, no, our priority is not this. Our priority is to distribute public roads to our friends who support us, is to, take all the money from NSSF and give it through shade banks to our friends who support us. They will be in government for 5 years. Yeah. And they'll harass us, right? And
the country will go back to zero.
And the country will go back to zero. And the kids will not have education. The medicine will not be there. And Kenyans will be saying, why did we say no to a good framework that would have stopped that?
That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line.
And it's not rocket science.
It's not rocket science. It's that simple. President Kibaki has done what a gentleman can do even with a flawed constitution, because he has the goodwill, he has the intentions of Kenyans at heart. Give the same constitution to somebody else who doesn't have those attributes, and we could be in trouble. I watched the former president just the other day saying that whatever he did it because he was using the law that was there then. So we should not blame him for having detained people, for having done all those things. He was on record.
Yes.
Now, and I asked myself, what law is he referring to? It's the current constitution. Now, if he is saying he did those bad things because the law allowed him, what are we saying? Anyone could do the same. Now, President Kibaki has not done those bad things. But we cannot assume that everyone will be President Kibaki. It could be Jeff, it could be Kimunya. Yeah. I could want to get even on the people who harass me in Parliament.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And I'll detain them all.
Yeah.
But
under the current.
But that's why we need the structures. And talking of what happened in Parliament, one thing I'm very happy about, within the chapter on executive, I believe it's Article 152. It now sets out very clearly how a vote of no confidence in a minister can be determined in Parliament. So it's not just an MP waking up because he has a grudge against you and rushing through a motion, and a notice is given in the afternoon or in the morning, is discussed in the afternoon, and the decision is made. There's a due process that has not been set up in the new constitution to protect people. And I'm very happy that perhaps I gave the impetus to the committee to protect future ministers.
Yes.
Right?
And you came back.
And I came back because, as I said then, the truth will set you free.
You're not only the comeback kid, you're a smart guy, man.
Oh, thank you.
You're a smart guy. Well done. Thank you for breaking it down. Good grief. If Amos Kimunya has not broken it down for you enough, I tell you, he says it's not rocket science. This country will change. And he says it's going to happen next week. you will feel the change, just like we did in 2002 when there was a new wave. The euphoria is there. We're standing on the edge of history. And like Mheshimiwa here says, which side of history do you want to be on? It's time to decide. Wow, what a guest, what a show. The Comeback Kid is, wow, coming back strong. Cannot find these kinds of guests anywhere else but right here on the bench on the award-winning station, K24. Where as always, we are, even in times of coming back, we are all Kenyan.
All the time, especially after next week.
Well done.
Cheers.
Capital Talk is recorded at the Fairview Hotel, the country hotel in town.